Hi friends, I hope everyone's doing well. This is the final video showing what I did during my week off from YouTube at the beginning of August. I have these 4 repurposed canvases that need to be completed. You may be able to see some remnants of what was on these canvases previously. The artwork was not working out as I had planned, so I decided to remove as much as I could, then paint over it with black paint. Then I started working on a series creating small radiating composition collages. These are the ones that I finished so far. I'd like to finish the rest of the collages in this video, so if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get started. Here are the papers I pulled for this first collage. As usual, I pulled more papers than I will use because I like to have options. A tip to pulling papers for a project is to have a color palette in mind first. So if you pull too many papers, at least the color selection will be narrowed down. While you watch me create this first collage, let's talk about my process of constructing radiating composition collages. First, I like to mark the point on the substrate where all the papers will meet. This guide helps me when placing the various papers. Also, I prefer an off-center point for the artwork. I think it's more pleasing to look at than an artwork with a point that's dead center. I want to mention now, so I don't forget later, the area where all the papers meet will be covered with a small element. I think it adds a finishing touch to the collage. This element is a great way to hide the center point if the papers don't meet perfectly or if the area looks messy. I'm starting with a light bright colored paper to contrast with the black painted canvas. For this series of artwork, I started with either a light or a mid-tone value paper for the first layer that will be directly on top of the black painted substrate. As always, I'm being mindful of representing all 3 values in each collage. Creating a radiating composition can be challenging. You're placing cut papers, typically a triangular shape, meeting at a central point. I like to slightly overlap the adjoining papers to give myself some leeway when cutting the papers to size and shape for that space. Also, to make the design interesting, I add on top smaller and/or thinner papers that I consider accents. You can make this design very intricate by adding many layers of papers and many different color and pattern papers. Conversely, you can create a successful simple collage. You must be mindful of the color papers you use and how you cut each one to size and shape. Also, I suggest starting with a paper larger than the size of the final shape. You can gradually cut down the paper to size. As you will see, more times than not, I will cut the paper multiple times to get it to fit in the area. This usually happens after I have the base layer of papers in place. Even if you overlap the papers, you still want to make sure the size of the paper will allow enough of the adjacent papers to show. Another tip is to fold the paper where you want to cut it. It's another way to have a guide for yourself. And of course, you can mark that area with a pencil as well. You'll see me go back and forth between folding the paper and marking it with a pencil. Let's talk more about the placement of the papers. You'll notice that some of the papers will be placed right along the edge or over the edge of the canvas. The papers that are over the edge will be cut away once the collage is completed. Others will have just the tips of the paper touching the edge, while some of the papers won't touch the edge at all. Those papers are usually placed after the base layer. These different placements are another way to make the collage more interesting to look at. I didn't show it in this video, but I'm applying soft gel matte medium off camera on the back of each paper. You can use any adhesive you want, but I do recommend one that has a strong hold and is archival. Also, I use a smoothing tool or a shop towel to make sure the paper is evenly adhered to the substrate. Most of this footage is removed to save time because I do this step after I place each paper on the substrate. I can't think of anything else to mention at this point. I'll add music and come back once the collage is done. Here's the finished collage. I would consider it to have a simple design because the papers have subtle patterns. I do think it's successful. There's a variety of elements in different sizes and shapes. I love the color palette. The bright, almost fluorescent yellow paper contrasts with the pink, aqua, and blue papers. Here's the grayscale version. Light value is the bright yellow and pink. Mid-tone is the aqua paper. Dark value is the blue papers and the black painted canvas. Here are the papers selected for this next collage. I'm changing the center point for this next one from the upper left off center to the lower right off center. Again, I'm using a light value for the first layer to contrast with the black painted canvas. I'm basically building this collage in the same way as the previous one. I don't have anything new to mention, so I'll add music and come back once it's finished. As you notice, I didn't use any of the aqua papers. I decided that I liked the way the purple papers were a strong color element against the white, gray, and black. I didn't think the aqua paper would add anything to the design. It's another simple design, but I'm happy with the way it turned out. Not all artwork needs to be complex. Here's the grayscale version. It's very easy to see that the mostly white paper is the light value, the gray paper is the mid-tone value, and the purple paper and the black painted canvas are the dark values. I'm changing up the color palette for this next collage. It leans towards a muted palette, which is different than the previous two. I love how purple and yellow, which are complementary colors on the color wheel, enhance each other. This is one of my favorite color pairings, which is why I chose it. Again, I'm picking a different area for the central point, upper right and off center. Instead of starting with a light value paper, I decided to use this muted yellow pattern paper that is mid-tone. There isn't anything else I want to mention, so I'll add music and come back once it's finished. Here's the finished collage. I like that it's predominantly purple and yellow. The blue and black pattern paper was used because it added a subtle color detail. Also this time the light value paper was used as accents instead of a mid-tone or dark value paper. Here's the grayscale version. It has a strong overall mid-tone value. The light value is the tan, white, and black pattern paper. The mid-tone values are represented by the yellow, purple, and blue pattern paper. The dark value is the black painted canvas. This is a color palette that I rarely, if ever, use, but I like it. I think the brown, orange, aqua, and cream colors work well together. This time the central point is in the lower right off center. It's good to place the points in different areas to see how they influence the design. I'm starting with a mid-tone value color paper, which is the orange. Since all of the canvases are painted black, I didn't want to use dark value papers for the first layer. There wouldn't be any contrast between the ground and the first paper layer. While you watch me create this final collage, I'll add music and come back once it's finished. I'm happy with the way this collage turned out. I made a note to myself to incorporate this color palette into my art practice. I like the softness of the aqua paper against the orange and the brown papers. The circular grid paper was an unexpected accent since all the other papers I used are monoprinted. Here's the grayscale version. Again, another strong mid-tone value collage, which are the orange and aqua papers. The light value is the circular grid paper, and the dark values are the brown paper and the black painted canvas. Here are all 7 collages in this series. I'm starting to work more on series of artwork. I find it enjoyable and satisfying. I hope you found this video interesting. There are 2 videos on my channel where I go over different compositions. I'll link those videos in the description area. That's it for this video. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch it. Take care.